Today on the 5 a.m. grind.
Wait. We didn't do the intro. Welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Harris, how's it going?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
It's going well. All right, you can get to it.
So today on the 5 a.m. grind, we've got our first guest interview. We're delighted to bring you the first guest interview with Jim Estill.
Yeah, so Jim Estill is a Canadian serial entrepreneur, recipient of the Order of Canada, and recipient of Canada's Top 40 Under 40 Award. Jim started his first company called EMJ Systems in university and eventually sold it for over $50 million. He then served as one of the founding board members of Research in Motion and then became a venture capital investor. In 2010, Jim published his first book called Time Leadership: Lessons from a CEO, and then later published another book called 0 to 2 Billion, The Marketing and Branding Story Behind the Growth. In 2015, Jim became the CEO of Danby Appliances, and in 2017, Jim bought Danby Appliances and helped grow the company's revenue to over $400 million. In 2018, Jim spent over $1.5 million of his own money to sponsor almost 300 Syrian refugees. Mr. Estill is also a seed investor, board advisor, and a mentor to a number of successful Canadian companies and startups. So without further ado, here's our interview with Jim Estill. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
All right, so welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Today's guest interview is Jim Estill. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So we'll dive right in. We'll cover questions about your career, your trajectory as an entrepreneur, and your life in general. So just going over the first question, you got the entrepreneurship bug pretty early. You started your first company in university. What sparked that desire to become an entrepreneur?
Well, really, I was an engineering student. I wanted to design circuit boards because I'm a techie nerd at that time, and I needed a computer, and I got a better deal if I bought two of them. And back then computers were very expensive. So I bought two and I sold one, then someone else wanted one. So I bought another two, and then someone wanted a printer, and then they needed a hard drive. And then I bought some memory, and next thing you know, I'm buying and selling computers. So and at the same time, I was designing circuit boards. So I actually did launch that business and did design circuit boards and did do that. But simultaneously, I'm buying and selling computers. And that's the business I'm known for because I grew that business ultimately to a couple billion in sales.
Right. And then you sold it, I believe it was in 2005.
That's correct.
Okay. And then what did you do after that? So did you go did you retire? Did you take some time off? What did you do after that?
Yeah. So I stayed with the company that bought my company for 5 years.
Okay.
And then I retired. And I was retired for about 5 years. I moved to New York because I wanted to do a stint in the States. And I thought it'd be exciting. The reason I chose New York instead of Silicon Valley was it was closer to where I am in Guelph or Toronto area. And my parents were aging. Then my dad got sick after I was there for about 5 years. So I moved back to Guelph. And although I was retired, I sat on some boards. I was doing some angel investing, doing some mentoring and stuff like that. One of the boards I sat on was Danby Appliances, and the CEO of Danby Appliances resigned. It happens to be in Guelph, which is where I live. I said, I can go in and run it for a while. So I got in, started running it again, and I realized that's where I get my juice is running a business. So I said, I like to do this. And then I said, okay, that'll be my next decade gig. I'll run Danby Appliances. And then the ownership group said they wanted me to sell it. So I said, wait a minute, I mean, that's my next decade gig. And I said, how much for? They told me, and I said, okay, great, I'll take it. So I bought the business, and that was about 5 years ago. So that's when I ended up owning Danby Appliances.
Wow, okay. So you did that pretty late in your career, you'd say? I don't know, would you consider that pretty late? Why'd you decide to take such a risk? Because obviously buying a company involves risks. Why'd you decide to do it at that point?
Well, partly because I had originally bought into the theory that you start your business, you grow it, you sell it for a lot of money, you retire.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, I was too young to retire. And in reality, I was in my early 50s, and I don't like being retired. And
What did you do during your retirement? What did you do during your retirement?
Well, I did some angel investing and I
Uh,
sat on some boards. I did some coaching and mentoring. I did some consulting. Um, but I don't, my hobbies are business.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it wasn't getting the same juice from sitting on a board, making suggestions, coming back next quarter and saying, oh, the suggestion didn't get done. You don't have the same control. So in reality, my interests are business. Um, I also developed my philosophies around wealth at that time, or in around that time. And that is, business is a tool to do good, and wealth, you need a certain amount to feel secure. Above that, you should use it to do good. So I use business to make money to do good. And many people say, oh, business is bad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't believe that. I believe we can have a bigger impact through business than through, at least I can, than anything else. I mean, I could sit on the board of the United Way, which I did for a couple of years, but I don't enjoy that. I don't think it adds much value. I much prefer selling wine coolers.
Well, so I mean, just to get back to, I guess, the beginning part of your career, was there anybody in your family that had the entrepreneurship bug that you saw, or was it just kind of you fell into an opportunity and then you kind of learned as you went along?
Uh, so no, my father worked for the same company forever, and when I started going into business, my dad said to me, "It's okay when you fail. You've got an engineering degree. You can always go get a job." And my mother
Okay.
cried. And the reason my mother cried is that her father had gone bankrupt in business. And so she'd had a very hard life because the depression happened. Like,
Yeah.
her father went bankrupt and had a fire, didn't believe in insurance because the depression, the insurance companies didn't pay, didn't believe in banks. Basically, a really hard life. She thought, do what my dad did, go get a job at a
Mm.
company and work for it until you get a gold chain and a pension. And that's the way life is. Now, about 10 years or 15 years after I started my business, my father got downsized when he was about 55. So he worked for the company for 30 years. And then they said, oh, no, you're not going to get. So he came and worked for me. And he became my biggest advocate. As far as entrepreneurial um, juice, although that's the company I talk about being my first company, my first company was painting houses. So my dad wanted me to paint the house, and he showed me how to paint. And then one of the neighbors said, "Oh, can you paint my fence?" And I said, and he was going to pay me. And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." And I went and
Yeah.
painted the house, and then I said, "Oh, this is a cool way to make money." I actually wanted to work at a children's camp, a church camp, but
Yeah.
back then church camps don't pay much. And it was only 1 month, but I have 2 months in the summer. No one's going to hire anybody for 1 month. So I started my painting business. Then I hired my brothers, and then I hired my friends, and then I bought a truck, and then I bought some scaffolding. And I was too young to drive, so I was not supposed to drive the truck. And so I had a pretty successful painting business that I did through my high school years. That's before College Pro painters. And
Right.
I would just take, that was before the age of cell phones. I would
Yeah.
take a flyer around, and I had a little form to fill in, and I would say, let me paint your eaves and soffits and
Yeah.
frames.
That's
It would
amazing.
cost you less than $300 or whatever. Would you like to? And then I gave my home phone number, and
Yeah.
then you call it, and I called it, of course, genius name, Jim's Painting. And I put a little election sign type thing out on the lawn, Jim's Painting, with the phone number. No website back then.
Yeah.
um, I set up the account at the paint store, and I just go buy the paint, and that was my first entrepreneurial experience.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from that one? That first endeavor, what was the biggest kind of shock that you experienced getting that first taste of entrepreneurship life?
Well, see, I had actually had other jobs that paid,
Yeah.
but I learned that I could make a lot more money painting houses than
Mm.
not. At the same time, I learned some hard lessons. I don't remember how much I quoted, but I quoted like $500 to paint this huge frame house. And I spent um, 800 hours on it or something. I mean,
Completely.
I
Yeah.
made 20 cents an hour. That's when I learned, I gotta, well, actually, I even have this problem a little today. I tend to overestimate what I can accomplish in a day. I have my list even today. Here's what I want to do today.
Right.
I
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
get through this all.
Right.
Yeah.
But we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, underestimate what we can accomplish in a
Yeah.
decade.
True.
But that taught me how to quote better, because in painting business, you're mostly, it's mostly labor. There is materials, but the materials tends to be a calculation of number of square foot and coverage of paint. So that was that. My competitive advantage in painting houses was I was polite and I did what I said I was going to do. And in Woodstock, Ontario, where I grew up,
Yeah.
that was enough competitive advantage to get me business, because the other painters wouldn't show up when they had an appointment to be there. They'd walk with their work shoes into someone's house. They'd throw their cigarette butts in the hedge, and they just were generally pigs, and it was easy to compete.
I think that's still a competitive advantage today.
Yeah,
It's
today,
hard to find contractors
customer
with
service
manners.
is underrated.
Yeah.
Good customer service is so underrated
Yeah.
in business.
Well, and to some extent, that gave me confidence when I started my computer business.
Right. Okay.
Because I knew I
Yeah.
could start a services business and make a living. I could make a fine living. As a matter of fact, even when I was buying and selling computers and had a business, and I had 5 employees or 6 employees, I still would paint a few houses on the weekend once in a while, because painting houses was sure money. So that was a way that I knew I could make sure money. And that was a fallback. It's a very good fallback. I had a university degree and I was an engineer. I'm telling you, you make more money painting houses than you can as an engineer back then, and probably right now.
That's crazy. So how'd you deal with doubters? You said your mom was a little skeptical of you starting your business. Yeah. How'd you overcome that? Because usually when family doubt you, right, you tend to take it quite seriously. Because if my brother says something or my mom says, I don't think you'll be successful, how do you overcome that?
Well, there's 2 things I remember. One is I went home for Christmas, 2 or 3 years later after starting my business. And by then I didn't have a lot of employees. I had a dozen employees or 20 employees. I don't know. And my mom said to me, Jim, did you get a job yet? Like, this is 2 or 3 years in, I had 20 employees. Yeah. And she thinks, I haven't got a job. But it actually drove me when my father said, when you fail, you can always get a job. When I was at my darkest hours, I said, I will never fail. And it drove me to make sure that I didn't fail. So it had the opposite impact. Like, there's no way I'm going to give my father the satisfaction of saying his son failed in business. There is no way. And you know the way it is in early business. You can't make the payroll on Thursday, and you're living on
a prayer.
New Year's beans, right?
Yeah,
that is nuts. So I guess when you talk about failures, I'm sure you've overcome through obstacles, problems, etc. in business. What's your best way to cope with failure and just problems you're running into, etc.? Is it just a sheer will? Is it the fact, like you sort of mentioned, there was internal motivation? You didn't want to prove your dad right. How do you get over it?
Well, I have developed a philosophy around failure that I want to have a failure culture. Having a failure does not make you a failure. Right. Not trying makes you a failure.
Right.
One of the things I say is fail often, fail fast, fail cheap. And in my business, in my company, in Danby, I want people to take some risks, try some things, and find out, oh, that didn't work. Right. We need to try things. And businesses die when they start saying, I'm never going to make a mistake. Yeah. So I'm not going to try to do anything. So we're not going to bring out this new product, because if we bring out this new product, it might fail. And you're right, it might fail. But the fail often, fail fast, and the fail cheap, you have to say, okay, you're going to bring out this new product, but you're not going to spend $5 million on it. You're not going to risk going out of business for it. You're going to risk a manageable amount. How can you get the minimum order quantity down? What happens if it doesn't sell? In my case, I've got an outlet stores. Okay, well, worst case, we can sell in the outlet stores. Worst case, new product. What's the worst case? Well, you can discount it down to the price of the less premium product, right? I'm like, Danby has a new product which I'm really excited by. It's a 5-in-1 microwave. So it's a microwave that has a toaster oven and has an air fryer and a convection oven. Our theory is that people don't have any counter space. So they don't want an air fryer next to and they don't want a toaster oven next to their microwave. and they don't have cupboard space for it. So I want one of these products. I'm a kind of guy that I would not replace my microwave unless it dies, but I'll replace it for this. Real exciting. So what's the absolute worst case in that? We produce, I don't know, at minimum quantity, let's say 5,000, and it doesn't sell. I could price it the same as a microwave. Like I'm saying, worst case, and you'll move it out, because if I said, the same price and it's got all these other features, now hopefully we don't have to do that. But and my other example is the outlet stores, and we always have this list of people who are willing to buy deals, so to speak. And for that matter, when you're bringing out a new product, we could be bringing out the wrong color. We could be bringing out the finish gets tarnished, or in which case, you get an off product. Lots of people would want it if you discount it enough. So.
Right. Makes absolute sense.
So my question then, I mean, when you had your painting company, you're very close to the decision making, right? You knew you're the one who's quoting, you're the one who's marketing, you're basically doing everything, organizing. I'm assuming organizing the individuals to go in and paint, and you're in it with them. With Danby, you're not necessarily going to be doing all of that. You're managing a lot of the people, taking on different departments. But with a bigger organization, I feel like there's a bit of a competition between the managers and the innovators. You need managers to kind of manage departments, but they're not going to grow the top line. So how do you balance that? And how do you make sure, because from the start, you're trying to get innovators from the company to kind of rise up as well, so you can pinpoint who those innovators are and who those managers are, and kind of placing people where they're going to succeed with what their talents are. So how do you kind of manage that in your current organization to make these decisions that you're making right now?
So I do talk about, we want a failure culture. Yeah. So you're trying to teach the managers. We don't zap someone because Ali tried something. We say, good try, Ali. I mean, you at least you did it. At least you tried. We do, when we're making decisions, we always do it in, I believe there's a great book called The Wisdom of Crowds. So just because I think something is a good idea, no, let's ask the crowd. What does the crowd think? If the crowd tends to agree, the problem we have is you can end up with groupthink. If I get to stand up and say, I think this is a great idea, everyone says yes. They don't want to disagree with Jim. That must be, so you have to avoid the groupthink. But then celebrate the wins, and at the same time, don't zap the failures, and celebrate that you tried. I want people to try. As a matter of fact, when I'm sitting on boards of directors, I say, good companies have to reinvest some of their profits, or they will have no future. If Danby were to take no risk, we will have no future. And like, we have a good business. We can keep doing what we're doing, but 10 years from now or 20 years from now, you're not going to want to buy exactly the same freezer or fridge that you buy today. That's just not the way it works.
So true. I wanted to ask you a question just about how you got involved with Danby. Some of the topics we cover on our podcast tend to be around just the advice that people give you. A lot of people tell you should pursue your passion, especially to a lot of younger people when you're in school, etc. Did you become passionate about fridges? What do you believe in that advice in general? And people say pursue your passion. Or do you think people become passionate when they try something? Just want to hear your thoughts there.
Well, you see, when I was in university, I was taking engineering. I thought I was a techie nerd, loved technology, so I'm buying and selling computers. Right. So I thought that's my passion. But after you do it for 20 years, it was no longer my passion. What I learned my passion in is business.
Right.
So so is my passion fridges? No, my passion is business. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm in the fridge business, yes, how do I make my fridges better? And how do I make them more reliable, more durable? How do I make them last longer? How do I sell more of them? So now I'm all about fridges, but I wouldn't say that I'm Mr. Passion about fridges. Yeah. But you heard me talk about my 5-in-1 microwave. I get excited about one. Because now that is my business. That's what I do. The other thing I'm doing in Danby is trying to apply high-tech methodology to a smokestack industry. The most application of that is speed versus because when I first came to Danby, it's like, oh, well, here's the model we're going to bring out in 2020, 24. What do you mean 2024? You're gonna bring that out? Because, in the computer business, it's like, what are you bringing out next Thursday?
Yeah.
And so we're driving that speed through Danby Appliances to try to gain that competitive advantage, because that's what business is all about, is competitive advantage. And it tends to be little competitive advantage. It doesn't tend to be one great, big, huge competitive advantage. Sometimes it can be. If you invent rocket science, then maybe you do have it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You also launched ShipperBee recently, which is your newest venture, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Why you decided to start something from the ground up? Because that's a total startup, right? That wasn't an established company. It's something you built from the ground up.
That's correct. So that one came when I was at Danby, and I was in the factory saying, what else can we make in the factory? And say, oh, maybe we're not an appliance company.
Yeah.
We're a company that makes big boxes. So then I'm saying, what are the trends? I always follow the trends. One of the trends was everybody's buying things on Amazon and .com, and parcel theft. So
Right.
we at Danby designed a smart parcel mailbox that the UPS driver puts the product in the smart parcel mailbox, and you get an email or a text, and you can look on the camera and see who delivered it, and it protects your product from porch pirates because it's enclosed and only you can open. It's got an app and stuff like that. Well, when we developed that, I'm studying courier business. All right, how big does it have to be? How many parcels does FedEx deliver? How much? And you see, wow, this industry is growing at 25% per year, and they don't have enough capacity. So that's when we invented the ShipperBee methodology, and the hives, which are the transfer mailboxes, were based on the same technology as the Danby Parcel Guard, which is a smart parcel mailbox. And now that I'm CEO of both companies, and so we recently sold ShipperBee.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
To Torstar,
Okay.
which is kind of what we wanted to do. Like,
Yeah.
basically, you start a business, you launch it, and then you sell it. So it did what we wanted it to do, and that can change the courier industry, the way that's done. Because instead of doing hub and spoke, which is traditional courier, it's basically more like an internet node network where the parcels hop from node to node, as opposed to all hub and spoke. It's particularly good at COVID because we don't use people to sort. It's all done with computers in these hives.
That's fantastic. So congratulations on the sale. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
How do you keep track of all it? Because you sit on multiple boards. You run Danby. You had this company, which you obviously built from the ground up and then sold. Just in terms of your day, your year, how do you prioritize everything? Because it seems like you do a lot, and I'm assuming you have a family, you have people to take care of as well, and you have hobbies. How do you keep on top of it?
I'm fortunate now on the family front. My kids are all grown and launched and live in their own house, and they're socially distanced. So all we're ever doing is seeing them on Zoom, anyways, right? But early in business, I knew I had a time management problem. So I read every single book and took every single course and did everything I could to learn about time management. I actually ended up writing a book on time management. So I have a bunch of time management methods. But largely for me, it has to do with setting the right goals and focusing on the important things. Because it's easy, and I still run into this once in a while. I go in the morning and wake up at noon, and I haven't really done anything. All I've done is replied to a bunch of emails, and haven't accomplished the big thing. But if I keep my eye on what's the big thing, then that's what moves me forward.
Fantastic. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So I just wanted to ask a question about when you said what you're passionate about business. What is it about business? Because when I'm listening to, for example, even the 5-in-1 appliance, it's not necessarily the appliance itself, but it's that, wow, I solved a problem, and it's innovative. Nobody else has this, right? So in the bigger picture of business, what is it that keeps you kind of just up at night, engaged? Is it that innovation, answering the question? Is it strategy? What is it that kind of brings it to life to you?
Well, the bigger the business is, the more that the CEO should focus on culture and allow everyone else to make decisions. So I focus on culture, let everyone else make decisions. By nature, I do a lot of the vision and strategy, and the team has to be good at executing and implementation. So I spend more of the time on that. As far as what's inspiring about business, I actually believe that business can be one of the most powerful ways to create positive change in the world. And I've just given everyone my secret. I focus on tiny competitive advantages. And for
Can you
me, from a
elaborate on
strategy,
that? What do you mean by tiny competitive advantages?
okay, so Danby makes refrigerators and freezers and whatnot, but we're leaders in second appliances. You don't even know what I'm talking about because it's a weird space. We generally are not your refrigerator in your kitchen. We're
Sure.
the refrigerator in your basement. We're the refrigerator in your dorm room. We're the refrigerator in your garage, in your workshop. So we're second appliance. We're your chest freezer. We're your wine cooler. We're a second appliance. We're not your primary appliance. Once we figure that out, our competitors, we compete with LG, Samsung, Whirlpool, multi-billion dollar companies. They don't care that much about the bar fridge market because they want to sell $4,000 fridges. We don't sell $4,000 fridges. We don't make $4,000 fridges. We're making $249 fridges. You can imagine the focus that we get on a $249 fridge. They don't spend any time or resource on it. We can get real good at figuring out how can we do things better? How can we perfect the packaging? I mean, we're shipping a lot of our products on the internet these days. So we do massive studies on how can we make sure this stuff is shippable so that it doesn't break in shipping. What do we need? Better packaging? Do we need better product design? Like what do we need? How do we need to reinforce it here? How do we make things shippable? Because we spend that energy on that, then all of a sudden our competitors say, well, what do you mean? We have similar product. Yeah, you've got similar product, but you end up with 20% shipping damage. We win in that type of situation. So it's all about those little minor competitive advantages.
Nice. When you decide to go into a new category or launch a new fridge, etc., how do you decide whether or not it's going to be successful? Like, do you try to like you said, is it sort of like a fail quickly thing, trial it out, test the market, and then fail quickly, or if it's successful, just add more money to it and see if it works? How do you decide what to focus on or prioritize when it comes to those decisions?
I mean, partly we do some really fast market surveys to find out what customers want,
Okay.
but it's fail often, fail fast, fail cheap. So we will actually make 100 fridges with a curved handle and 100 with a straight handle, and we'll sell them in the outlet store and find out the ones with the straight handle sold out twice as fast as the other ones. Everyone likes straight handles. I'm just using that as an example.
That's like A/B testing.
It's like A/B testing.
Wow, I did not know appliances.
Right. I mean, we like one of our popular fridges is a cherry red bar fridge.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And why is it cherry red? The time we did cherry red, we did a green one and we did a blue one, a Danby blue and a green one. And we had those products, but we only produced, I don't even know the numbers, but we produced, a few hundred of each and found out everyone loves cherry red. They don't want the blue ones or the green ones much. We no longer sell the blue ones or the green ones. So it's trying different things. And to some extent, it's going on trends. We try to trend watch. What are people looking for? I mean, on our bar fridge, we did studies. I mean, first you thought, oh, bar fridges, it's beer fridge. Everyone's storing beer in it. And then you go and do the analysis. No, a lot of people are using it as a secondary fridge, overflow fridge. And then you look at it, so you don't want to design it so it's only good for beer. You want to design it so that it's good for extra vegetables, especially now in pandemic. Right. So that type of thing. We're very successful on what's called an all fridge. So it's a fridge with no freezer. Why is that? Because if you're buying just a second fridge, you just want a second fridge. And what do you want? Another little compartment. But if you look at it from a cost point of view, it costs a lot of money to put that other little freezer compartment on a fridge. So get an all fridge and possibly on all freezers. So you can have matching if you want both, or you can get a chest freezer if you want a chest freezer. But it's those little things that if you go and look at the competitors, they tend to not be as strong in those products. And to some extent, competitive advantage can be if we're first and early. So right now, other people are coming up with their all fridges, but we're a little early on it and whatnot. I mean, another trend in COVID is we have a huge business selling to hotels and motels. Well, of course, that dies. But those same fridges, everyone is now not wanting to go to the grocery store as much, so they move into the home market, except the home market wants actually a bigger fridge than what you want in a hotel room. Hotel room trend was smaller, get it down to 1 cubic foot. Well, in your basement, you don't care if it's 3 cubic foot or 4 cubic feet, you want it like a little bit bigger. So that's okay. It just means you do the bigger versions, not the smallest versions.
Right.
Okay, so I think I know the answer to this question already, but I want to ask, are you more first to market or refine what's in the market? What's your mindset?
We actually are not first to market, but we are first to market with some innovations
Okay.
in that. But we're not bringing out the first bar fridge or the first freezer.
Okay.
So we let other people bring those out. I mean, we're just bringing out an air fryer now. Air fryer's been on the market for a couple or a few years, right? But we didn't want to just go and do, oh, we'll do an air fryer just like everyone else. No, we're doing it in our way, which gives us competitive advantage. So you will not, I don't think you're going to find another 5-in-1 appliance.
Yeah.
But next year you will. Other people have the same thing, right?
Yeah. And then are you, this is a follow-up, are you volume or margin? Where do you put yourself? Not just in terms of what you're, like overall, just your mindset as a bit entrepreneur. Where do you push? Where would you like to be? Yep.
We tend to be more volume than margin. We tend to be a value brand.
Yeah.
Like that. People tend to buy us because we're a value priced brand, not because we're the most premium in the market. Some of our wine coolers are a little premium, but see, wine coolers are a different purchase decision. You want a wine cooler that's very cool so you can show your friends. You want a chest freezer that's very functional. What you want in a chest freezer? Functional and durable. You want it to last forever, be no hassle. That's what you want. Wine cooler, maybe a bit more sex appeal so that people, you can be snooty and show people your wine, right?
So our podcast is obviously called the 5 a.m. Grind. We've discussed on a previous episode just what our morning routines are like. What does a typical morning routine look like for you? When do you start your day? When do you end? Anything that you try to keep consistent, maybe meditation and stuff like that? What does that look like?
So I love the early morning hours.
Okay.
And there are so many things that I want to do that I can't even have time for all of them. So meditation is one. Exercise is another obvious. I also do morning pages, but not every morning. And that's basically journaling. So those are 3 habits that I think are success habits that really launch my day well. Sometimes, though, I don't do the meditation. I will do it midday or do it later in the day. So, and it depends on my day. For what it's worth, I never set an alarm either. I rarely set an alarm. I mean, I guess if I had a meeting at 5, then I might set my alarm, but no.
Yeah. What time do you get up in the morning? Just out of curiosity.
I get up anywhere from 5:30 to 6:30. Although tomorrow morning it's clocks move forward. It'll be interesting to see if I sleep at 7:30. I don't know.
We'll see what happens. That's interesting. Okay, cool. And do you find that when you don't do your exercise or your meditation, you're sort of off balance, or do you sort of see, oh, there's something wrong with my routine? It keeps you grounded and very consistent, I would imagine.
It keeps me grounded, and I much prefer it. But I also have learned to not let it throw my day.
Right.
And that's particularly true on the exercise, because I will get the exercise, like whenever you read about exercise, what should you do? 3 or 4 times a week. So I'm going to get my 3 or 4 times a week. Am I getting 7 days a week? Not necessarily. So I don't beat myself up too badly if I miss an exercise thing. Another habit I have is the night before, I make a list of what do I have to do. And that tends to launch my day better. And I even put on that list what my specific workout is. Specifically, I'm doing biceps and triceps today. I know that that's my lifting routine that I do. I look forward to some workout routines more than others. I dread my ab day, for instance, but I do my ab day.
Nice. So you mentioned you do that to-do list. Any other methods that you use just to plan for the entire week, month, or year? Like, for example, when 2021 started, did you do any planning for the year? Just personal productivity and planning. I'm just interested to get your take there.
So I love, I call it doing New Year's resolutions, but not really New Year's resolutions. I do vision statements.
Okay.
So I will say at the end of the year, I will have sold $500 million. I will have opened this new factory. I will have introduced X new products. I will have done. So I write it that way. And then I like reviewing it. I actually set these resolutions not once a year, but twice a year. So I do it September 1st and January 1st. I think it's partly because September 1st is used to be when the kids go back to school, used to
Right.
be sort of a restart for the year.
Yeah.
And January 1st, just because it's New Year's. And I find I tend to work very hard during the year, but I get a little break at Christmas because other people don't work. And so there's going to be a couple extra days around Christmas is what I find.
Right. Right.
Are your goals, I would say, what's the right way, pragmatic, or are they more like, I mean, you're reaching for the stars.
Stretch goals?
Are you
Yeah. Are they stretch type goals that you set them for?
Well, I actually believe in having 3 goals.
Okay.
One goal is a stretch goal. And I got this when I was reading a book on running because I used to run a lot. So what's your one goal? Your one goal is to finish the 10K in 38 minutes. That's a first goal. Second goal is finish it in 42 minutes. Third goal is to finish it. So one of the goals is achievable, highly achievable. One of them is, no, that's going to be a real tough to do. Then what I do on a goal, even like that, is I break it backwards. Okay, if I'm going to run a 38-minute 10K, what's the training I need to do? Okay, that means that 3 times a week I'm going to do a 5K at this speed, and I'm going to do this speed work and this blah blah blah. So I tend to take the goals and break them back into what else I can do in it. And what's most important in my experience is the actions. So a goal tends to be, all right, a simple goal, sell $500 million. Well, sell $500 million, that's a nothing. What's the activities I need to do to sell $500 million? Okay, I need to have 5 new large retail customers. Okay, to get 5 new retail customers, what are the actions I'm going to do? I'm going to connect with 200 people in these large retailers on LinkedIn. I'm going to what is the process, right?
Right.
I'm going to go on your podcast.
little things. Break it down into little things. Got it. I've also followed you on social media, and what I've noticed about you in the mornings or during the day is, without fail, you always share a quote. Is there a reason for that? You do that every day as well. Is that part of your morning routine? Is that just something you like to do to stay active on social media?
Well, the interesting thing is I don't actually do that every day. I do it once every 2 weeks and do 14 of them. You just see it every day. So it's set to go off every day. The reason I do that, though, is to keep in touch with my network.
Right.
See, if I connected with you on LinkedIn, and then a year from now, you say, who's that fridge guy? I don't remember. You may or may not remember who I am, what I do. But I send that quote every day, and then you say, "Oh, Jim, I was thinking I need to buy my wife a Christmas present. Let's see if he's got a nice wine cooler." Blah blah blah. So by sending that every day, it keeps me more top of mind. The reason I like to send quotations is it doesn't seem arrogant to me. Most of the quotes you see are not my quotes. It's quotes from other famous people. It's also part of my belief in social media. 90% of what I do is for the benefit of the reader, not for my benefit. So I'm doing it to make your day. And how long does it take you to read my quote? 10 seconds. Right? It's 5 seconds. And some of them will resonate. That's great. It doesn't even hurt if it's controversial. If you say, oh, that I don't believe in that, it doesn't matter. I made you think. And you sometimes see Jim Estill, Danby Appliances, and you would be surprised how many people who I have not talked to for a year or more come back to me. So what's going to happen is you're going to interview someone 2 years from now who's putting up an apartment complex. You say, oh, you're putting up a 200 unit apartment complex. I should introduce you to Jim. Because I'm not top of mind, but I'm out there enough without being rude. See, it'd be very rude if I sent you an email every day saying, here's the spam of the day and here's my new product, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. Now, once I'm on social media, I do occasionally announce my new products. I will put a link to this podcast out on my social media.
So awesome.
So basically I use it to amplify the news that's out there, and I use it to send out some news, but largely it's for the benefit of the reader, not for my self-aggrandizement.
Right. So stay top of mind. That's actually really smart. That's really good. I like that. What's one habit that you'd say has really contributed to your success? Did you always wake up early, or is that a thing you did after you became a business owner? Were you always a morning person? Would you say, is that the contributor to success, or is it something else?
Well, definitely. I've always woken up early, so
Okay.
that's sort of in my DNA, and
Mm-hmm.
that's partly because I'm very driven. So early in business, I had huge work ethic, so I worked terribly long, and part of that was getting up early. But the one secret I have is do the worst thing first thing.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I
The
do first
hardest
thing
thing
in the
first.
morning and I do
Yeah.
first thing after lunch. And everybody has those things that you don't quite want to do. So it's do the worst thing first thing. I do it after my morning routine. So it's after I've got my done my meditation, done my exercise, done my morning pages. Then my first thing is when I sit down to do it. Because if I don't do the worst thing first thing, um, I can actually get absorbed for a full hour and not do anything. I'll just reply to some email. Most of it's gonna be spam. Blah
Mm.
blah. Oh, check the news. See how many people got vaccinated. Like next thing you know, an hour goes by, and this I had this low level stress. Oh, I should have got back to that person. Oh, I should have done something. So do the worst thing first thing. It's simple, and usually the worst thing first thing, it's not that worst. Like once you get into it, it's not that.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just commented I don't particularly like my ab day,
Yeah.
but there's never a day that I do my ab workout that I don't say, why did I procrastinate on that? I mean, it's not that hard. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. That's awesome. And then in terms of just, you clearly work really hard and have a busy schedule. What do you do to sort of unwind? Do you take time off? You mentioned, is it that you take time off during Christmas? How do you sort of balance it out? Because my philosophy has always been, you work really hard, but then sometimes you got to unwind because that keeps you going to work hard, right? You take some rest. Do you believe in that as well, or do you just keep going? Do you cope with it a different way?
well, I totally believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a little more do as I say, not as I do. So I do tend to work hard a lot of the time. That said, I'm a health guy, so I do work out and I do look after my health.
Yeah.
And I don't always do that just in the morning. So I mean, I've got my Fitbit. I'll do my 10,000 steps today, regardless. I guarantee you, I'll have my 10,000 steps in, which means I might have to go for a walk tonight.
Yeah.
That's fine. Um, so I have that, which is regular. I'm also the most boring person in the world as far as people say, "Oh, what are your interests? Do I golf? No, I don't golf. I don't follow sports. I don't follow movie stars. I don't do any of that stuff. Um, my hobbies are not normal hobbies.
You
My
read a
hobbies are
lot.
business.
You read a lot,
Well,
obviously.
like one thing
You
I do
read
is
a
I
lot.
garden. So I
Okay.
like gardening and I grow vegetables and I like cooking. I make soup and blah
Mm.
blah blah. But that's not people say, oh, that's kind of boring. You should be doing something else. The other thing I'm going to do this year, I haven't done this every year, but I'm actually going to take 3 weeks vacation in the
Okay.
summer, and I'm camping
Oh
with
well.
no internet. So I will
Oh
do a
wow.
complete internet shutdown for
That's
3 weeks. And
that's
where I'm
intense.
going, there's no cell service. So
Whew.
like I'm
Yeah.
off grid for 3 weeks. And I've done this. I haven't done 3 weeks. I've done a couple of weeks. I find for the first 3 days, I'm pulling my hair out. I need to find someplace I can get coverage up at the next ridge and whatnot. But after you've done it for a week, you just sort of get into the groove that it's not there. I do internet fasts at least once a month, also on one day on the weekend. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but
It's
like shut your phone off when you're done this and don't turn it on till the same time tomorrow, and
yeah.
you'll find when you start it's withdrawal
Yeah.
because
Right.
it's where you look for anything. How cold is it out? What's the weather? What's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever?
You'll find any
But
reason to to
Yeah.
check your phone. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And then just wanted to ask you, as you look back at your life, and you've been a very successful entrepreneur, you had multiple businesses. What is it that you're sort of trying to leave, or what kind of a legacy do you want to leave in Canada, around the world, et cetera? Do you think life in those terms, or do you just think about the impact you've made today? Do you think about just legacy and what people will remember you for?
well, my ultimate goal is to influence more entrepreneurs and business people to
Yeah.
practice social capitalism, and that is looking after all stakeholders, not just shareholders. So traditional capitalism is you want what you basically, it's a greed thing. I'm the shareholder. I take all the money.
Yeah.
But in conscious capitalism, you want to be good for the environment. You want to be good for the community. You want to be good for your staff. Of course, you want to be good for your customers. You want to be good for your suppliers. So looking at it more holistically. And that's where I believe that business can have a huge impact for social good. I was trying to think of who I was listening to. I'm a self-development junkie, so I listen to too many podcasts, and I read too much and whatnot. But someone said people go to church for 1 hour a week. We've got people for 40 hours a week working. What's the impact we can have in 40 hours a week versus 1 hour a week? And I'm not a religious guy or anything, but it's sort of, you put it in those terms, it's a massive responsibility. We have more impact on another stat. The same guy said, happiness in your marriage is directly proportionate to how well you get along with your boss. And there's some of that. I mean, you hear that, I'm upset in life, I'm going to go home and kick the cat, and actually, for that matter, why is there physical abuse in relationships? I mean, isn't that the stupidest thing, to go and hit the person you love and live with? Well, they just happen to be there and they get the brunt of it, where you should be. That's probably not what is causing the angst, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like your generation was a bit more in touch with their human side than even our generation. The generations that are kind of coming, they're getting more distant.
Because of the internet?
Internet, and I just feel like it's like business. If you went far back enough, even if you go back like 50 years, 100 years, wherever, it's you're playing a role in the community. Exactly like kind of what you're advocating, social capitalism. And then somewhere along the way, it turned into this huge money-making machine. But that's not where it was. I think this is like more a recent development. And I feel like in the future, it's moving more towards more of a superficial reality. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
yeah. I mean, I do worry about phones, to tell you the truth. I mean, well, you don't go into restaurants anymore, but you used to go into a restaurant, you'd have two people having dinner opposite each other on their phones. Right? I mean, my grandkids, you want to drive them to, from here to Toronto, it's an hour drive. They're in the back seat on a screen. Well, what's that all about? Like, at least we would fight with our brothers in the back seat. Like, it's different.
And I think before when you'd have a conversation, you'd actually connect with people. Now it's more, what can I put on Instagram? Can I take a picture with the other person? And I think business is transforming the same way, because you're not necessarily, the people who are at the higher levels of business are not connecting with their consumers. And so they're so distant, which is why sometimes we get like all this stuff like Wells Fargo or whatever was going on with them, and like all these other, not just Wells Fargo, but any business that kind of isn't sincere even towards their consumers.
I think you've totally nailed something, and I think the trend though will be a pendulum that will swing back a little bit. I don't think the pandemic helped us. The pandemic didn't help us is you're not in person. You're you're doing it on screen. I mean, I do morning to night video calls, but it's not the same video call as it is in person. And I think that that's a problem. And then we're going to come out of that, plus all the stuff. And you're also right on social media. You have to be careful even on what you guys do when you're interviewing me, because I'm actually just a regular person. I've been very lucky. Why am I successful? Luck. That's my advice. Have good luck. You will do well. But people will talk as if they're the genius, as if they've got it all figured out. And we're all deeply flawed people. I'm not perfect. And you guys could, you'll find that there's lots of imperfections. And it's that authenticity that we lack. And I definitely have seen people, they want to go out and do the Instagram photo. So I am going to go push the kids down the toboggan slope once. And as long as I get the good picture, we're done. Back inside. It's not like we're going to go have fun.
So what's your biggest advice? What's the biggest change future entrepreneurs can make that can move the pendulum more towards the social capitalism side?
Well, I think it has to do with thinking of all stakeholders, not simply shareholders. The other issue we have is we tend to like concrete numerical. That's why financials are so easy. It's concrete numerical. You can tell how many dollars and cents. But what's really most important is actually intangible. And it's really, really tough. And true wealth is your, I don't know what I call it. It's social wealth. I mean, yes, there's financial wealth. Financial wealth is worth something, but social wealth is what's the wealth of friends and friendship and true friends. And that's actually a better security because I mean, I could lose all of my money, but if I have friends, family, people, I don't live under a bridge.
Yeah.
Actually, we're very fortunate in Canada. Most people do not need to live under a bridge because we have pretty good social safety net. And what people who do live under bridges are lacking tends to be the social capital, not the financial capital. Often compounded by drugs and compounded by mental health. But so I focus on that social capital, and maybe even half of that social capital is yourself and self-care. And I don't mean that by being selfish, but I would not even be here if I didn't look after myself. You guys wouldn't be interviewing me. I know this. I'm old, and my classmates from university, many of them are retiring, and I've gone to 50th or I've gone to anniversaries. And when I see these other people and you say, well, what did you do most of your life? Well, you sat on the couch and ate chips and drank beer, and it kind of shows like you're not looking after yourself.
Yeah, so true. I guess we have one more question and then we'll wrap it up here. What's one advice you'd say to someone who is, confused in their life about their career? They're not certain about, taking on a risk, a new business, etc. What advice would you want to impart them if it's someone who's sort of in the 30s, 40s, or, even 50s, and they're just confused about the direction they're going in their life? What's some advice that you'd give them just about, direction, career, etc.?
Well, there's a few pieces of advice. If you're depressed and not happy and don't know where you want to go, help someone else. And I've learned that one of the best cures for depression is go work in the soup kitchen. Go help other people. Because if you think you've got problems in your life, I'm sure you have problems in your life. Yeah, great. Go sign up at Salvation Army to serve lunch tomorrow at the church. Right. I'm telling you, you will be kind of happy because you're kind of not your life. What you have is, I guarantee you, first world problems. It's not third world problems. So that's one suggestion. As far as entrepreneurs go, there's a fear, but what the heck, go for it anyways. So just repeat that all the time. What the heck, go for it anyways. And the downsides are much less than you think. Yeah. Can you imagine if you guys start a business tomorrow and then you go bankrupt 6 months later? Does that mean that it means you actually have more credibility because you tried something? You tried. You have more experience. It's you guys just earned the PhD, which you could go and go to U of T and get your PhD. Get it from the School of Hard Knocks and learn, and don't get cynical. And it's just it's part of your learning. Everything's a learning.
Fantastic. I think we can leave it there.
Yeah, that
was awesome. Thanks a lot, Jim. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
You have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.